Blackrock CEO Larry Fink says that globalism is coming to an end. Well, he's right about that, but he is wrong about why. What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special, and Larry Fink issued a letter to Blackrock shareholders today where he said the era of globalism is coming to an end, blaming Russia's invasion of Ukraine for the problem. But if you dig a little deeper and you look at some of the headlines from the past few months, you realize globalism started breaking down a long time before Russia invaded Ukraine. And when you start to look at why globalism is breaking down, you realize it's actually people like Larry Fink who are causing this. And worse yet, their ESG mandates that they have imposed on the rest of the world have set in motion a global famine that may just end up killing millions of people. Now let's take a look at some of the clips from this article. Larry Fink, CEO and chairman of the world's biggest asset manager, Blackrock, who manages $10 trillion of our money, said Russia's invasion of Ukraine has upended the world order that has been in place since the end of the Cold War. By the way, does anybody else's skin crawl when you hear these globalist elitists use phrases like world order? Who talks like that? But I digress. Fink says the Russian invasion of Ukraine has put an end to the globalization we have experienced over the last 3 decades. It has left many communities and people feeling isolated and looking inward. I believe this has exacerbated the polarization and extremist behavior we are seeing across society today. Another thing that kills me is when these global elitist types use phrases like extremist to describe anyone who does not subscribe to their very narrow view of how the world should be. It's not extremist to disagree with someone. Extremist is one of the labels that these people use to strong-arm you and bully you into living the way they want you to live. Again, I digress. So what Fink is basically saying here is that this breakdown in globalism that I've been talking about on this channel since really last summer, that it's all because Russia invaded Ukraine. Anybody who doesn't take this mindless drivel at face value and has actually been paying attention to what's going on in the world for the last year has seen that globalism started breaking down way before Vladimir Putin got a twinkle in his eye when he looked towards Ukraine. And before everybody jumps down my throat, I am neither a Vladimir Putin apologist, a fanboy, nor am I beating the drum saying, let's start World War III. I hate all the governments equally. They all suck. And also, I'd just like to give a big welcome to all the FSB agents and Russian fanboys who are bombarding my channel with "Oorah, Russia" comments. You guys are adorable. And thank you very much for the boost you've given me in the YouTube algorithm. My channel's views are way up. And I want to wish you guys good luck with your reboot of Rocky IV where Drago wins. Now that we've established that I'm one of those extremists who hates all world governments equally, let's get back to Larry Fink. So Larry Fink is one of those guys who has forced ESG mandates on the whole world. And ESG, if you don't know, stands for Environmental Social Governance. And while ESG is sold to the public as this unicorns and rainbows idea where businesses don't just pursue profits but the well-being of everyone in the community, what it really is how people like Larry Fink and Klaus Schwab use our money to force their political ideology on everyone. Anyone who doesn't subscribe to their political ideology, be they businesses, individuals, employees, whatever, become financial outcasts in society. They're cut off from capital, they're cut off from loans, they become persona non grata in business. Larry Fink uses yours and my 401k and pension money to do this. Another way to look at ESG is its financial cancel culture. And one of the biggest targets of the ESG people has been the oil and gas industry. For years, they've used ESG social credit scores to ensure that no bank is willing to loan money to oil or gas companies for exploration or for production of fossil fuels. And what this has done is this has starved this vital industry of capital. Now, in oil and gas, there is roughly a 5-year delay between capital expenditure and production. It takes about 5 years to develop a well and lay the pipe and weld it all together. And someone like Chris Taylor over at Financial Fitness could tell you all about how much work goes into developing a well. Well, people like Larry Fink have used ESG to cut off that capital. Well, now we're starting to see that years of that capital being denied to the industry is resulting in less and less production. And this is not by accident. Remember, people like Larry Fink, Soleil Amarova, and Klaus Schwab, they have bragged for years that they are going to starve the oil and gas and coal industries of capital, that they want to put these industries out of business. Well, now these guys are starting to realize they may have caused a really big problem. You see, one of the most important materials in the world is Fertilizer. We need fertilizer to grow food so we don't all starve to death. And if you've been following this channel, you know I've been talking about the skyrocketing price of fertilizer since all the way back in October. And this problem has gotten worse and worse and worse, and it's been largely ignored by our leaders, and now it's probably too late to do anything about it. In my opinion, global famine and starvation has already started. Most people just don't realize it yet. Well, one of the reasons why fertilizer is becoming so expensive is because we have a shortage of natural gas. Natural gas is the main ingredient in nitrogen fertilizer. And since the oil and gas industry can't get any money because of Larry Fink and his ESG social credit scores, now there's not enough natural gas to make enough fertilizer. Now farmers can't fertilize their fields, and now crop yields are going to decline. And when crop yields decline, food gets more expensive and poor people starve to death. Now, Russia invading Ukraine has exacerbated that problem and made things worse, but that is not the direct cause of this. This problem started months before the invasion. Look at some of these headlines from months ago. Back in October, China stopped exporting fertilizers. That had nothing to do with the Russian invasion. Also back in October, Argentina announced curbs on food exports. Again, that has nothing to do with Russia and their invasion. In December, Slovenia announced that they were going to stop electricity exports. Back in January, Indonesia announced coal export bans. None of these stories have anything to do with Vladimir Putin. These are all countries implementing price controls to try to suppress domestic prices to control the rate of inflation, an inflation problem that has been caused by central banks and their endless money printing and by Larry Fink and his ESG mandates. So what do you do when you realize you're facing the PR nightmare that you have indirectly caused a global famine that could kill millions of people? Probably the same thing you do when you realize you've caused an inflation problem that's going to make the whole world angry at you. I don't know, start a war and blame the bad guys. And that's exactly what these World Economic Forum global elitist leaders have done. I was talking for months about how it seemed like the whole world wanted this war in Europe. Basically, it seemed like everybody but the Ukrainians wanted this war. And before you jump down my throats, no, I'm not a big Ukrainian fanboy. I have a general dislike of all governments. Remember, I'm one of those extremist types that Larry Fink warned you about. I think they all suck. Because in just a span of a couple of years, these egomaniacal schmucks have taken us from a period of prosperity to a period of inflation created by too much quantitative easing. That's led to a breakdown in supply chains and shortages of everything. That's led to an energy shortage. That's led to a fertilizer shortage that's about to cause a food shortage that's going to kill millions of people. Remember, it is the Larry Finks and the Klaus Schwabs who created these problems. And they did it using your money, and they told you it was for your own good. So when you realize you're indirectly responsible for the deaths of millions of people, what do? Blame Russia. And that's exactly what Larry Fink did with his letter today. He realizes that his ESG mandates are about to kill millions of people. And so he's trying to get out in front of the narrative, and he's trying to blame it all on Russia. So when that famine that we all see coming gets here, he can just say, see, it was Putin. Putin did it. And for the 50th time, I don't like Putin. I don't like any of them. They all suck. I wish they would all just shut up and leave us alone. But what do I know? I'm just an extremist. And if you're like me and you see what the Klaus Schwabs and the Larry Finks of the world have done, and you don't want to let them get away with it, help get the word out. Share this video. Tell your friends about it. Use the hashtag ESGKills, because that's what ESG does, folks. ESG kills. ESG and its mandates is about to cause a global famine. And remember, they used your money to do it, and they used their own allies in media and big tech to label anybody who dares speak out against ESG with these taboo buzzwords like a science denier, or racist, or socially irresponsible, or greedy. Now let me ask you this, Larry Fink. How socially responsible is it to use other people's money to impose your narrow view of the world on everyone, cause the deaths of millions of people, and get rich doing it? How socially responsible is that, Larry? Folks, remember that the next time Larry Fink issues a letter to shareholders or does an appearance on CNBC where he virtue signals and talks down to the rest of we peasants about how we need to fall in line with his view of the world. Remember that it's people like Larry Fink who caused what's coming. And if you don't want to take my word for it, you can go back to this video that I did all the way back in October of last year, talking about how this fertilizer problem could cause a food shortage in the coming years. Till next time, live small and dream big.